Mic check, mic check. All praise to the Most High. Shalom, 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 Israel. It is another segment of Sound Doctrine with your brother, Darash. So, last week, was it last week? I think it was last week. We went into something that was a little more advanced. Still kind of basic, but advanced, but very important to understand, which was the understanding the heavenly hosts, right? And the reason why that was done is because we've rolled into, and probably somewhere in here we'll get into really breaking down a Hebrew year, a Hebrew calendar, but we've rolled into the faction of the law known as the feast days, right? So there's 5 categories, as we like to call it, of laws. You have the sacrificial, ceremonial, dietary, moral, and civil law. So we are in what's called the ceremonial aspect of the law. And these ceremonies are the feast days, right? So during the time of Passover, we did the breakdown of the history of the Passover. I believe it was 2 parts to that. So now we're rolling into what would be the very next feast day, which is the memorial assignment, followed by the Feast of First Fruits, right? So the memorial assignment is actually, because it's not a Sabbath, but it is a memorial. It is a feast, a day that we commemorate because of the things that our forefather Simon, really him and his brothers, did for us, but more specifically Simon, because he did a little more. We commemorate the things that he had done, right? We have so many holidays in the world that we love to kind of like just celebrate, and they have no meaning. And if they do have meanings, it has an evil meaning, and it has a representation of something that God hates. So as we get into these feast days, I'm hoping to give you guys an understanding as to why it is that we celebrate these days. So that way you take more pride and look forward more so to the coming of these particular feast days, because the more you understand it, the more you know why we do it, the more you understand why we celebrate it, the more appreciative you become of these feast days. The Passover being an example. If you really know the history of the Passover, it makes you love it that much more. And tonight we're going to go into the memorial of Simon, right? Before we get into it, let's get my 2. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 4. Chapter 4 and verse 2. Oh, no, I'll do it. Don't worry about it. The book of Proverbs, chapter 4, and verse 2. And it reads, "For I give you good doctrine, forsake ye not my law," right? It is law and mandated that we come together on the Lord's feast days to celebrate these feast days in remembrance of him or the men that he placed in leadership at that time, to commemorate them that did the works of the Lord, right? So we look at like Hanukkah. Hanukkah is another one of those. People argue, well, that's technically not in Torah. Yes, but men that were memorialized and ordained by the Father at that time told us this is what we shall be doing. So why would you not do that when these righteous men commissioned us to do so? And if you're feeling like, oh, well, they added that, well, then you would say these men are not righteous at all, because by law, you can't add to the law, right? But these are things that were added by these righteous men further down the road to commemorate things about the Lord or things about these men who helped to save God's people. Memorial assignment being one of those, right? Let's go to Proverbs chapter 27 and verse 2 to get into it. Usually I go to 2 Timothy 4, but we won't today. Proverbs 27 and verse 2. And it reads, let another man praise thee, and not thine own mouth, a stranger, and not thine own lips, right? So this feast day is to commemorate or memorialize one of our forefathers that sacrificed his life, went to war for us, and was looked at in high regard due to the things that he did for us. And so this feast day is here to give praise to the things that he did. It's not his job to praise himself, but for him helping the nation and all of the things that he did for us, preventing us from being destroyed. Well, we'll get into it. You'll see all of the things that Simon had done for us and see why he is worthy of his flowers, worthy to be praised, worthy to be commemorated, right? So we're going to get straight into the history of the memorial of Simon. So we're going to flip over to 1 Maccabees. We're going to get straight into it, chapter 13. First Maccabees 13, and we're gonna do a decent amount of reading today. I don't know how many of you guys have read through the book of Maccabees, but you guys are gonna read a few chapters tonight and get some understanding, right? So, let's read and then we'll get into it. First Maccabees chapter 13 and verse 1. Now when Simon heard that Tryphon had gathered together a great host to invade the land of Judea and destroy it, and saw that the people was in great trembling and fear, he went up to Jerusalem and gathered the people together and gave them exhortation, saying, ye yourselves know what great things I and my brethren and my father's house have done for the laws and the sanctuary, the battles also and troubles which we have seen, by reason whereof all my brethren are slain for Israel's sake, and I am left alone. So Tryphon was a general at this time trying to take the king's crown. Tryphon was also an individual who hated the Jews, was seeking to invade Judea. There were Greeks at this time already invaded in there and had taken over the land of Judea, right? And we're going to see this is also one of the big reasons why Simon is memorialized for something that he did. But in this time, Tryphon said, we're about to go and invade Jerusalem and tear it up. Israel is terrified. Simon, who's just lost all of his brothers, every single one of he's the last standing of his brothers, right? Before we read on, let's go to 1 Maccabees 2. Let's go to 1 Maccabees chapter 2. I'm going to hold this. Go to 1 Maccabees chapter 2. We're going to start at verse 1. In those days arose Mattathias, this is the father of Simon, the son of John, the son of Simeon, a priest of the sons of Joarib from Jerusalem, and dwelt in Modin. So the Hasmoneans or the Maccabees were of a priestly lineage. They were of the sons of Aaron, right? Mattathias is the father of who we call the Maccabees. It says, and he had 5 sons, Johanan, called Caddis, Simon, called Thasai, Judas, who was called Maccabeus, Eleazar, called Avaron, and Jonathan, whose surname was Apphus. So all Mattathias had already grown old and died. Judas Maccabeus died in a war. Jonathan, actually, I'm gonna get that and show you how he died, right? So all of his brothers were wiped out. Simon was all that was left, right? Let's jump back just a little bit. Actually, we're not going to jump back just yet. First Maccabees chapter 13 and verse 4. It says, by reason whereof all my brethren are slain for Israel's sake. So all of his brothers died fighting for the nation, fighting for their freedom, fighting against the wicked, fighting to make sure that they don't give in to the ways of the Greeks. Because this is the time that was referred to as the Hellenization period. The Jews were being told they can't keep the laws anymore. The Jews were being told they cannot call themselves Jews anymore. The Jews were being told they must sacrifice to a whole nother deity. This family and their followers said, we will fight to the death. All of his brothers lost their lives in these wars, right? Now, therefore, be it far from me that I should spare mine own life in any time of trouble, for I am no better than my brethren. So Simon being the last, Simon being the leader of the people at this time said, all my brothers died. My father is dead. I'm not about to spare my life and watch Israel fall into calamity. I'm ready to die too. Verse 6, doubtless I will avenge my nation. He said with all confidence, win, lose, or draw. He said, I'm going to defend my nation and the sanctuary and our wives and our children. For all the heathen are gathered to destroy us of very malice. So with malicious intent, they're trying to destroy us. Now, as soon as the people heard these words, their spirit revived. And they answered with a loud voice, thou shalt be our leader instead of Judas and Jonathan, thy brother. Judas was initially the captain, the general. Simon was the counselor, and I'll show you guys that in a minute. And Jonathan, when Judas died, Jonathan was the next up to be the military leader. Jonathan dies, and now you have Simon, right? Now, really quickly, Simon called Thasai, right? So Simon Thasai was the son of Mattathias, thus a member of the Hasmonean family. The name Thasai has a connotation, meaning the wise, a title which can also mean the director, the guide, the man of counsel, and the zealous, right? So this is fairly important, right? Let's go back to First Maccabees 2, and we're going to drop down to verse 60. Verse 60. 64. This is Mattathias speaking to his sons. Wherefore ye, my sons, be valiant, and show yourselves men in the behalf of the law, for by it ye shall obtain glory. And behold, I know that your brother Simon is a man of counsel. Give ear unto him always. He shall be a father unto you. As for Judas Maccabeus, he hath been mighty and strong, even from his youth up. Let him be your captain and fight the battle of the people. So Simon was the individual that they came to for counsel, for wisdom. That was his role, right? Now he is the individual who, and we'll see how important that is, and we'll see the wisdom that he had and what he did for Israel very shortly. But this was the role that he played. While Judas was the leader of war, he knew all of the, what's the word, the maneuvers and methods of war. He went to his brother for counsel on should we not, count the cost. When he needed wisdom and upliftment, he went to Simon. Simon was that counsel for him, right? For all of them. So, jumping back to 1 Maccabees 13, it says, now as soon as the people, verse 7, now as soon as the people heard these words, their spirit revived. And they answered with a loud voice, saying, thou shalt be our leader instead of Judas and Jonathan, thy brother. Now, mind you, Jonathan had just gotten killed by Tryphon. Tryphon killed Jonathan, just a summary. Tryphon killed Jonathan because Jonathan was a friend of Antiochus the Fifth. Well, I wouldn't say a friend, but there was a level of what's the word, affinity between the two. And so Tryphon felt if he tried to kill Antiochus, not the fourth, the fifth, who was only, I believe, like 9 years old at the time. If he tried to kill Antiochus the fifth, Jonathan would try to stop him. So he devised a plan to capture and kill Jonathan. Jonathan heard of it. Jonathan came up to him 40,000 deep. Tryphon heard about that and switched up his tune and switched up his method. He played the friend to Jonathan and said, oh, why did you bring all these people? Oh, man, hey, make sure y'all show him love. Hey, y'all would treat Jonathan as y'all would treat me and da-da-da-da-da, right? Then he said, man, if you want, you can send all your other men home. Just, pick your select few and come meet me in Ptolemais. And so Jonathan went and met him in Ptolemais. It was supposed to be peaceful. They locked him in Ptolemais and they killed all of his men, him included. All of this was so he could gain what you would call Asia, or the region of Asia, which was the Seleucid Empire, which Antiochus took hold of at this time, or was ruling at this time. So fast forward, Jonathan's dead. They find out Jonathan's dead, and now Simon is left to lead. And they answered with a loud voice, 1 Maccabees 13 and verse 8. And they answered with a loud voice, saying, thou shalt be our leader instead of Judas and Jonathan thy brother. Fight thou our battles, and whatsoever thou commandest, that will we do. So then he gathered together all the men of war, and made haste to finish the walls of Jerusalem, and he fortified it round about. Also he sent Jonathan, this is a different Jonathan, the son of Absalom, and with him a great power to Joppa, who casting down them that were therein, remained there in it. So there were people at Joppa. Simon sent Israelites there to remove them, and that's what he did. So Tryphon removed from Ptolemais with a great power to invade the land of Judea, and Jonathan was with him inward. But Simon pitched his tent at Adida, over against the plain. Now when Tryphon knew that Simon was risen up instead of his brother Jonathan, and meant to join battle with him, he sent messengers unto him, saying, whereas we have Jonathan thy brother in hold, it is for money that he is owing unto the king's treasure concerning the business that was committed unto him. So Tryphon makes up a story. Look, we got Jonathan held up. We had to catch him and capture him because he owes, taxes. So he's locked up. He's with us. Then it says, wherefore now send in 100 talents of silver and 2 of his sons for hostages, that when he is at liberty, he may not revolt from us, and we will let him go. So they said, well, send his sons, because we know he's a part of the Maccabean family. You guys are fighting against the Greeks. Send us 2 of his sons and send what he owes, supposedly, and we'll let him go. But we're going to keep his sons so we know he won't retaliate against us. Hereupon Simon, albeit he perceived that they spake deceitfully, which they were. unto him, yet sent he the money and the children, lest peradventure he should procure to himself great hatred of the people. So Simon was like, this don't sound right. They gotta be lying. However, if I don't comply with this and Jonathan is really still alive, then they're going to kill him and the people are going to hate me for it. It says, who might have said, because I sent him not the money and the children, therefore Jonathan is dead. So he sent them the children and the 100 talents. Howbeit Tryphon dissembled, neither would he let Jonathan go. So Tryphon shook the spot. He took the money, he took the kids, and he left. And after this came Tryphon to invade the land. Now he's headed to Judea to destroy it. Going round about by the way that leadeth unto Adorah. But Simon and his host marched against him in every place wheresoever he went. Now they that were in the tower sent messengers unto Tryphon, to the end that he should hasten his coming unto them by the wilderness and send them victuals. So they had people in the towers because they had already taken over Judea. They had already taken over the temple. They had taken over the whole city of Zion, right? And so now Simon is headed up there to clear it out. They're crying to Tryphon like, yo, get over here. The Israelites are coming. They ready to up it, right? And so they sent letters telling Tryphon to hurry up and get here. Wherefore Tryphon made ready all his horsemen to come that night. But there fell a very great snow, by reason whereof he came not. So it began to snow really hard, so he couldn't make it. It was a blizzard. So he departed and came into the country of Gilead. And when he came near to Baskama, he slew Jonathan, who was buried there. Salakia. All of Jonathan's men were killed. Jonathan was taken as a slave. Jonathan was still alive and was used as bait. Jonathan's sons were taken, as well as 100 talents. And then now, after he didn't hold to his word, he then kills Jonathan here and left him. Afterward, Tryphon returned and went into his own land. Then sent Simon and took the bones of Jonathan, his brother, and buried them in Modin, the city of his fathers. And all Israel made great lamentation for him, and bewailed him many days. Simon also built a monument upon the sepulchres of his father and his brethren, and raised it aloft to the site with hewn stone behind and before, meaning in front of. Moreover, he set up 7 pyramids, one against another, for his father and his mother and his 4 brethren. These were the what do they call them in today's time? Sepulchers. But drawing a blank right now. What's that word? Where you put the bodies inside of instead of a tomb? No. Somebody knows what the hell that word is. At the cemeteries, it's like the rich people be putting their families in there. That's going to bother me. Jesus. Let me see if somebody knows it. If not, I'm about to look it up because I want to give you guys the right word. It's bothering me right now. It's basically a vault, but it's a name for it. Mausoleum. It's basically a mausoleum. That was gonna bother me. I ain't gonna lie. I had to find that word. A mausoleum. So basically, he built mausoleums for his mother, his father, and all of his brothers, right? And they were buried inside of them. It says, moreover, he set up 7 pyramids, one against another, for his father, his mother, and his 4 brethren. And in these he made cunning devices, about the which he set great pillars. And upon the pillars he made all their armor for a perpetual memory, and by the armor ships carved, that they might be seen of all that sail on the sea. So he built a pyramid, and then he created pretty much a statue for all of them. So when people were going by in what's called the Mediterranean Sea, they would see them, right? This is the sepulchre which he made at Modin, and it standeth yet to this day. Now Tryphon dealt deceitfully with the young king Antiochus. This is Antiochus the fifth. I believe his name was Eupator. Let me see. Antiochus the fifth. Yeah, Eupator. And slew him. So this kid, mind you, he was born in 172 BC. He died in 161. So he was 9 years. He was a 9-year-old king that got killed by Tryphon because Tryphon wanted to be king. And he reigned in his stead and crowned himself king at Asia and brought a great calamity upon the land. Then Simon built up the strongholds in Judea and fenced them about with high towers and great walls and gates and bars and laid up victuals therein. Moreover, Simon chose men and sent to King Demetrius to the end he should give the land an immunity, because all Tryphon did was to spoil. So Demetrius, I believe his name was Demetrius Nicator. Let me double check so you guys can look up this information. So the little 9-year-old king, his name was Antiochus V Eupator, Eupator, if you ever want to get into the whole history of the Hellenization period. This was Antiochus Epiphanes' son. Antiochus Epiphanes was the piece of garbage that the Feast of Dedication is named after. He was the one that died, and he was the one that was going against Judas Maccabees and his brothers at that time. He was the one, when you read 1 Maccabees 1, all of that is Antiochus the fourth. Now we're talking about his 9-year-old son, Antiochus the fifth, right? Demetrius was the second. Demetrius the second, Nicator. Give you a quick background of him. Demetrius the second, called Nicator, also known as the Victor, was one of the sons of Demetrius the first. His mother may have been Laodicea the fifth, as was the case with his brother Antiochus the seventh, Sidetes. I don't think we're going to read about him today. Demetrius ruled the Seleucid Empire for 2 periods, separated by a number of years of captivity by Hyrcania in Parthia. First, from September 145 BC to July 138 BC, so about, what is that, about 8 years. And again, from 129 BC to 125 BC, which is about 4 years. His brother Antiochus VII ruled the Seleucid Empire in between those 2 reigns. Nicator was the king that granted independence to Simon and Israel. He took away the tribute and taxation. Demetrius was an ally to Israel, right? So, King Demetrius, let me see. He reigned in his stead. Verse 33. And Simon built up strongholds in Judea and fenced it about with high towers and great walls and gates and bars and laid up victuals thereof. Moreover, Simon chose men and sent to King Demetrius to the end he should give the land immunity, because all that Tryphon did was to spoil. Unto whom King Demetrius answered and wrote after this manner: King Demetrius unto Simon the high priest, and friend of kings, as also unto the elders and the nation of the Jews, sendeth greeting. The gold crown and the scarlet robe which ye sent unto us, we have received, and we are ready to make a steadfast peace with you, yea, and to write unto our officers to confirm the immunities which we have granted. So this is why Simon was known as the counselor. He was the one that helped to make these negotiations to create peace between Israel and the other kings, the other nations. He was the one that Judas would come to for counsel. Should we go to war? Should we not go to war? We got to count the cost. Will this be a detriment to the nation if we win this battle? Will we still lose the war? And so on and so forth. So he was very calculated, right? So he wrote to the king at this time, because there were 4 different emperors at this time, because the Greek Empire after Alexander the Great was split. Seleucid Empire, the Ptolemy Empire, it was Lysimachus, Antiochus, Ptolemy, and Cassander. I think it was Cassander, right? So all of these areas were ruled by different regions, and there was a number of wars where certain areas were conquered and became a part of one of the other empires. So when you read about the different Ptolemies, that was all the region of Egypt. Then you had Demetrius and all the Antiochuses. They were fighting over the area of Asia, India, regions of the Persians and the Medes. Then you had, I think, Cassander and them, it was like Asia Minor. Some of them overlapped, right? So in this particular time, Demetrius is the king of what you call the Seleucid Empire, the biggest empire in the Hellenized region. And so he's writing to Demetrius because they pretty much got all the power. He's writing to Demetrius, can you allow us sovereignty? Demetrius said, man, you good with us? I'll let all of my officers know that are within that region. Don't bother Israel. Don't bother the Jews. Don't bother Judea. They good, right? So that's what we're reading right now. Verse 38, and whatsoever covenants we have made with you shall stand, and the strongholds which ye have builded shall be your own. So when they created these towers, when they created these walls to defend Jerusalem, you didn't have to pay taxes. He said, that's your area, your region, under your protection, under your sovereignty. That's what's being told right now. As for any oversight, verse 39, as for any oversight or fault committed unto this day, we forgive it. And the crown tax also, which ye owe us, and if there be any other tribute paid in Jerusalem, it shall no more be paid. We were no longer getting that royal crown tax. We weren't being taxed. There were no more publicans coming in and squeezing us dry for our money. We were our own sovereign area. And look who are meet among you to be in our court. Let them be enrolled, and let there be peace between us. If you feel like anyone is qualified to be a part of the king's court and work in the royal field, so to speak, bring them over. They can be a part of the cabinet, right? They can be a part of the king's quarters, the king's court, right? Thus the yoke of the heathen was taken away from Israel in the 170th year. Then the people of Israel began to write in their instruments and contracts in the first year of Simon the high priest, the governor and the leader of the Jews. So in his first year, after his brothers died, one of the biggest things he did was he got us from under the oppression of the Hellenizers at the time. We didn't have to pay taxes anymore. Everything was ours. We became a friend to the biggest, baddest rulers at the time, the Seleucid Empire, through Demetrius II, which was a huge deal, because if you good with them, you good. And we're free, and we don't have to pay taxes or anything. This was the wisdom of Simon that got us out of this particular hole. In those days, Simon camped against Gaza and besieged it round about. He made also an engine of war and set it by the city and battered a certain tower and took it. And they that were in the engine leaped into the city, whereupon there was a great uproar in the city, insomuch as the people of the city rent their clothes and climbed upon the walls with their wives and children and cried with a loud voice, beseeching Simon to grant them peace. So, hold on real quick. So Gaza, let me see if I can pull this up. Gaza, a major Philistine city, was located right next to ancient Judea, but remained separate a separate political and cultural entity throughout much of their shared history. Gaza was geographically located in the plains of the southern Levant within the broader region, which included ancient Judea, but it was not part of the kingdom of Judah or Judea. So it was just outside of that, right? So Simon went to Gaza or camped against Gaza, created engines of war, battered down the walls of Gaza, ran into their city, took over that whole city. The people went running up the walls and was crying for Simon to deal with them kindly, right? Verse 46. And they said, deal not with us according to our wickedness, but according to thy mercy. So as evil as the nations have always been to us, when the upper hand is to us, we always still tend to do the righteous thing. They begged for Simon to deal with them according to his mercy. He was like, all right, all right. It says, so Simon was appeased toward them and fought no more against them, but put them out of the city and cleansed the houses wherein the idols were, and so entered into it with songs and thanksgiving. Yea, he put all uncleanness out of it, and placed such men there as would keep the law, and made it stronger than it was before, and built therein a dwelling place for himself. They also of the tower in Jerusalem were kept so straight. So these individuals were in the towers at Jerusalem, these heathens, that they could neither come forth nor go in the country, nor buy nor sell. Wherefore they were in great distress for want of victuals. That's food, raiment, clothing, water. They needed to purchase things, right? And a great number of them perished through famine. Then cried they to Simon, beseeching, begging him to be at one with them, which thing he granted them. And when he put them out from there, he cleansed the tower from pollution. So these people were in the towers of Jerusalem because in the time of the Hellenization period, the Jews was kicked out of Jerusalem a couple of times. The heathen was placed in there, placed around the temples, placed in Jerusalem, placed amongst our walls a number of times. Simon said, yeah, no, that ain't, we done with that, right? So now they're, because of the Greeks, they are in Jerusalem. They are in Judea. They are on our towers. Because Jerusalem was a guarded city. So they had a hold of that. They had the heathens in the towers. The Jews said, okay, we know how we're gonna starve them out. And that's what happened. So we gained back Gaza, we gained Gaza, we gained back Jerusalem and Judea in this particular time. We kicked out the heathen. We cleansed the city, right? It says in verse 50, then cried they to Simon, beseeching him to be at one with them, which thing he granted them. And when he had put them out from thence, he cleansed the tower from the pollutions, their idols, and entered into it the 23 day of the second month, in the 171st year, with thanksgiving and branches, palm trees, harps, cymbals, viols, hymns, and songs, because there was destroyed a great enemy out of Israel, these heathens that had overtaken Jerusalem. He ordained also that that day should be kept every year with gladness. Moreover, the hill of the temple that was by the tower he made stronger than it was, and there he dwelt himself with his company. So the memorial of Simon actually comes from what transpired here. They destroyed, well, excuse me. Well, let's start there. They conquered and took over the land of Gaza, which was directly next to Judea. They then went in and took back Judea and Jerusalem and cleansed the city, removed the pollutions, referring to the idols and the things that they were sacrificing to, threw all of that out and were purifying the city. And so this was to be commemorated, what Simon had done, right? In addition to that, we read earlier that Simon was able to make us sovereign at this time. Simon was able to create a relationship where we were no longer being taxed, we were no longer being burdened by the heathen due to the agreement made with the king that had the dominion over Israel at that time. Verse 53, and when Simon saw that John, his son, was a valiant man, he made him captain of all the hosts, and he dwelt in Gazara. Also, Simon was the only one with surviving children, which is what continued what you call the Hasmonean dynasty all the way to what's called the Herodian dynasty. Simon had kids, their kids had kids. The reason why Herod is called king of the Jews is because they married into the Hasmonean dynasty family through one of the daughters that he eventually killed. Herod eventually killed. So just a bit of history. There's a transition that goes from the Hasmonean leaders to Herod and the Herodians that you read about in the Gospels. Chapter 14. I'm trying to think. Am I going to need 15? I think we can stop at 14. It's something particular that I want to kind of read to show you what else he had done. We'll start at verse 1. First Maccabees 14:1. Now in the 163 year, King Demetrius gathered his forces together and went into Media to get him help to fight against Tryphon. But when Arsaces, the king of Persia and Media, heard that Demetrius was entered within his borders, he sent one of his princes to take him alive. So now King Demetrius just got swooped up, right? To take him alive. Verse 3, who went and smote the host of Demetrius and took him and brought him to Arsaces, by whom he was put in ward. That's when he went to jail. Remember, I read to you earlier, Demetrius ruled the Seleucid Empire for 2 periods, separated by a number of years. His first one was from 145 BC to 138 BC. Then he got locked up, as we read right here, right? It says, he sent one of his princes to take him alive, who went and smote the host of Demetrius and took him and brought him to Arsaces, by whom he was put in ward. As for the land of Judea, that was quiet all the days of Simon. So Simon brought peace to the land of Israel. This is why we commemorate Simon. This is why we have the memorial of Simon. Him taking back Jerusalem, him making the agreement and the affinity with Demetrius at the time, and him bringing peace to Israel in his life, right? For he sought the good of his nation in such wise, his selflessness and his desire to fight for his nation, and being willing to die for his nation and go to war for his nation, right? As that evermore his authority and honor pleased them well. And as he was honorable in all his acts, so in this, that he took Joppa for an haven, and made an entrance to the isles of the sea, and enlarged the bounds of his nation, and recovered the country. He even extended or expanded Israel. He said, we're taking this land, we're taking that back, we're taking this, and we're going to expand our territory, right? And gathered together a great number of captives, and had dominion over Gazara and Bethsura and the tower, out of the which he took all uncleanness, neither was there any that resisted him. Simon was making everybody that was around him, y'all gonna worship Yahweh. All these idols and stuff is out, and you gonna leave too. And if you're around, you're gonna serve us, and you're gonna serve Yahweh. That's the time Simon was on. So though he was a counselor first, a leader, a governor, a priest, he was a war general at this time. He's like, we're going to make these moves, and we're going to expand Israel in righteousness. Then did they till their ground, then did they till their ground in peace. And the earth gave her increase, and the trees of the field their fruit. Now, mind you, in the time of the Hellenization period, there was so much pain, suffering. Read the Maccabees. The Maccabees is such a, historically, it's so terrible to read. Read 2 Maccabees 7, just to give you an example. And I believe 2 Maccabees 6, where it goes into Eliezer. Read about what they were making us do. And then it'll make you appreciate more the work that Simon put in to stop a lot of this, right? So Simon, we were now at peace. Our land was at peace. It was yielding fruit. We were the land was fertile. It was beautiful. The ancient men had all sat all in the streets communing together of good tidings, and the young men put on their glorious and warlike apparel. It was a state of utopia, so to speak, right? He provided victuals for the cities and set in them all manner of munition, so that his honorable name was renowned unto the end of the world. He made peace in the land, and Israel rejoiced with great joy. For every man sat under his vine and his fig tree, and there was none to fray them, neither was there any left in the land to fight against them. Yea, the kings themselves were overthrown in those days. Nobody wanted issues with Simon or Israel in this time. Moreover, he strengthened all of his people that were brought low. The law he searched out. So as a ruler, he still was focused on, are we obeying the Father? Are we keeping the laws like we're supposed to? He searched out the Torah. And every contemptor of the law, anyone that was violating the law, and wicked person he took away. He removed all evil. He didn't utilize his power to make excuses for evil. He didn't turn his head away from judgment. He didn't try to keep the love of the people even though they were being evil. He said anybody that was against the law, moving against the law, violating the law, these niggas had to go. He kicked them out. He removed them. He got rid of them. He beautified the sanctuary and multiplied the vessels of the temple. Now, when it was heard at Rome, and as far as Sparta, that Jonathan was dead, they were very sorry. So they're just finding out that Simon's brother is dead. But as soon as they heard that his brother Simon was made high priest in his stead and ruled their country and the cities therein, they wrote unto him in tables of brass to renew the friendship and league which they had made with Judas and Jonathan his brethren, which writings were read before the congregation at Jerusalem. And this is the copy of the letters of the Lacedaemonians. These were not actual Romans, right? And we can see this, I believe, in it might be chapter 12. They were of the stock of Abraham. So these were Romans, but these were Jews. These were Israelites, right? And this is the copy of the letters that the Lacedaemonians sent. The rulers of the Lacedaemonians with the city unto Simon the high priest and the elders and the priests and the residue of the people of the Jews, our brethren, send greetings. The ambassadors that were sent unto our people certified us of your glory and honor, wherefore we are glad of their coming, and did register the things that they spake in the council of the people in this manner. Numenius, son of Antiochus, and Antipater, son of Jason, the Jews, ambassadors, came unto us to renew the friendship they had with us. That was, I believe, in chapter 12. And it pleased the people to entertain the men honorably and to put the copy of their ambassage in public records, to the end that the people of the Lacedaemonians might have a memorial thereof. Furthermore, we have written a copy thereof unto Simon the high priest. After this, Simon sent Numenius to Rome with a great shield of gold of 1,000 pound weight to confirm the league with them. So he confirmed 1,000 pounds of gold is crazy. I have no clue how you transfer that. They put that joint in a wagon and it was like 10 horsepower, bro. they rode it over. That's crazy. 1,000 pounds of gold to say, here is my proof or the collateral that this is legit. Whereof, when the people heard, they said, what thanks shall we give to Simon and his sons? They said, damn, what are we going to do with this? What do we give them back? Like, this is a big, when people gave you gifts back then, after you guys have sealed a contract, it was a show of good faith. So Simon was like, I'm going to show you a show of great faith. Like, this is such a big deal to me. Let me give you this. Something that's almost like, it's hard to one up. And I wasn't trying to one up you. I'm trying to show you that I'm serious about our affinity. And so the Romans was like, damn. What do we give him? What are we gonna give him back? Like, this is a big deal. It says, for he and his brethren and the house of his fathers have established Israel and chased away in fight their enemies from them and confirmed their liberty. So then they wrote it in the table of brass, which they set upon pillars in Mount Zion. And this is the copy of the writing, the 18th day of the month Elul, in the 163 year, being the 3rd year of Simon the high priest, at Saramel, in the great congregation of the priests and people, and rulers of the nation, and elders of the country, were these things notified unto us. For as much as oftentimes there have been wars in the country, wherein for our maintenance of their sanctuary and the law, Simon son of Mattathias, of the posterity of Jarib, together with his brethren, put themselves in jeopardy, and resisting the enemies of their nation, did their nation great honor. Remember, Proverbs 27:2, let another man praise thee. They had like official manuscripts, official engravements of their achievements and accomplishments, and singing their praises, right? It says, for after that, Jonathan, having gathered his nation together and been their high priest, was added to his people. Their enemies purposed to invade their country, that they might destroy it and lay hands on the sanctuary. At which time Simon rose up and fought for his nation, and spent much of his own substance, and armed the valiant men of his nation, and gave them wages, and fortified the cities of Judea, and together with Bethsura, that lieth upon the borders of Judea, where the armor of the enemies had been before, but he set a garrison of Jews. Moreover, he fortified Joppa, which lieth upon the sea, and Gazara, that bordereth upon Azotus, where the enemies had dwelt before. But he placed the Jews there, and furnished them with all things convenient for the reparation thereof. The people, therefore, seeing the acts of Simon, and unto what glory he thought to bring his nation, made him their governor and chief priest, because he had done all these things, and for the justice and faith which he kept to his nation, and for that he sought by all means to exalt his people. So Simon as a leader was willing to put his life on the line. Simon as a leader was willing to go out and sacrifice himself in battle. Simon as a leader, his desire was to make sure that justice was done in Israel. The righteous would be exalted and the wicked would be removed. Simon never used his power to say, I'm going to sit back, y'all going to do this. I'm going to get all this money and y'all going to do this. I won't say he wasted. He spent his substance, his gold, his silver, and everything he had to make sure that his military could eat, to make sure that they were taken care of. They decided to make him the chief priest and the governor, the first to ever do it. This is significant because in this time, the priests were the mediator between the people and God. They were not the official political leaders. That was frowned upon in Israel. You had a king, and then you had the priests. That was it. It was never a thing where your priest can be a king or your king can be a priest. That was out. So the fact that Simon made history in being able to do that. Simon made history in being looked at as the governor, the leader, but also the priest that looked over the temple and the priests of the temple, because he was the chief priest above all the other priests. That was monumental. That was historical, right? For in his time things prospered in his hands, so that the heathen were taken out. This is verse 36. So that the heathen were taken out of their country, and they also that were in the city of David in Jerusalem, who had made themselves a tower, out of which they issued and polluted all about the sanctuary, and did much hurt to the holy place. But he placed the Jews therein and fortified it for the safety of the country and the city, and raised up the walls of Jerusalem. King Demetrius, before he was caught up, King Demetrius also confirmed him in the high priesthood according to those things, and made him one of his friends, and honored him with great honor. For he had heard say that the Romans had called the Jews their friends and confederates and brethren, and that they had entertained the ambassadors of Simon honorably. So the Romans, a faction of the Romans, which were the Spartans, they were, as the scriptures say, the stock of Abraham as well. So he said, oh, the Romans are calling the Jews their brothers. I've seen what Simon and his brothers have done. Me being the king, they got to be good. So they're going to be good with me. Simon wrote the letter to seek pardon from Demetrius, and Demetrius said, you got it. So now they're recounting all of this information that Simon had done. Verse 39, and made him one of his friends and honored him with great honor. For he had heard say that the Romans had called the Jews their friends and confederates and brethren, and that they entertained the ambassadors of Simon honorably. Also that the Jews and priests were well pleased that Simon should be their governor and high priest forever, until there should arise a faithful prophet. So they said, until we get another seer, until we get another prophet that the Lord would deal with in giving us another king, it's gonna be Simon. Simon's going to be our leader, our governor, our ruler. And he's also going to be our priest. He's going to be our mediator between us and God. He's also going to be the one that leads the nation until further notice. He's a what? He's that guy, right? But his surname was Thasai. He was the counselor, the guide, the wise, right? Verse 42, moreover, that he should be their captain and should take charge of the sanctuary to set them over their works. So he set the other priests and the other Levites over their jobs. He was the chief priest. And armor over the fortresses, that I say, he should take charge of the sanctuary. Besides this, that he should be obeyed of every man, and that all the writings in the country should be made in his name, and that he should be clothed in purple and wear gold. So now they said only Simon. We'll read on. I'm going to show you something. Also that it should be lawful for none of the people or priests to break any of these things, or to gainsay his words, meaning don't go against, don't speak back, don't fight back, don't rebel. Don't gainsay his words. Or to gather an assembly in the country without him, or to be clothed in purple, or wear a buckle of gold. They said, y'all can't wear purple and gold. Y'all can't gather without him knowing. Y'all can't be sitting up there having these secret meetings. Y'all better not speak against none of the laws that he sets forth, or none of the ordinances that he sets forth. This man is the king and the priest. Nobody else had that title. I believe actually his son later down the road, but he was the very first of anybody from Moses, from the time Israel left Egypt, because remember, there was no nation of Israel before that. Moses left Egypt. We established Israel. Once we got into the land, Joshua, Judges, right? First Kings, or excuse me, First and Second Samuel. This is around probably like 1000 to 900 BC. So Israel becomes a nation around 1000 BC. We are now entering into 164 BC. So in the about 860 something years that Israel is a nation, this has never been done. Mind you, go look at the list of the kings. There's about 20 Southern Kingdom kings and like a million Northern Kingdom kings because they kept dying off. Northern Kingdom was so damn wicked, they kept dying off. But through all of the kings, none of them were the king and the priest. This man, Simon Maccabeus, or Simon Thassi, was the first ever. They said, couldn't nobody wear gold, couldn't nobody go against anything that he said, and whosoever should do otherwise or break any of these should be punished. Thus it liked all the people to deal with Simon, and to do as hath been said. And Simon accepted hereof, and was well pleased to be high priest and captain, meaning he was the leader of the what is it called? The army. He was the priest, the leader of all the Levites and priests, to give them their offices, the captain, the leader of the army, and the governor of the Jews, the overall leader of the nation. Nobody had ever done that. And to defend them all. He didn't use his status to gain more power. He used it to serve the people. And I think a lot of people miss the beauty in that. Simon wasn't a leader just in name. Simon wasn't a leader that used his leadership to give him more power or to get more people to serve him or to make it benefit him. He used his power to be the best servant that he could be, to exalt his people. That's why Simon has a day memorializing him. And it's not wrong to do so, because Simon was that righteous. Go read the history of the Maccabees, but read Simon. They was all righteous, but I really love the story of Simon, because he was the war tactician. He was the leader and the governor. He was the individual that his brother, who was the captain of the military, who was that guy at war, he even still went to Simon. Then Simon was so smooth. He was political. He got us up from under the thumb of the Seleucid Empire. Because when you read about what happened in Rome, they was squeezing us dry. When you read about early Hellenization period, they was taking all of our pennies. You better make sure you pay taxes to the damn king. They was squeezing us dry. He gave us back our sovereignty, our independence. He gave us back our power. And then he expanded the land. And all he did was rock and ride for righteousness and for the people and to serve the people and to help the people be exalted and lifted up in the eyes of God. He went straight back to the book of the law and said, let me make sure we follow in Torah. You not, you got to go. You not, you got to go. You not, you got to die. We going to be righteous here. And he stood on that. Then Simon, verse 47, then Simon accepted hereof. So after reading all of that, hearing Simon, this is what you going to do. Simon said, so be it. So it wasn't wicked, because Simon, being a righteous man, wouldn't have took it if it was wicked. He said, this is the best thing for the nation right now. Let me do that and be this example. Then Simon accepted hereof and was well pleased to be the high priest and captain and governor of the Jews and priests, and to defend them all. So they commanded that this writing should be put in a table of brass, and that they should be set up within the compass of the sanctuary in a conspicuous place. They said, put that mug at the damn door. Whenever you walk in, that's one of the first things you see. Them tables that tell you who Simon the Wise is. Y'all gonna read it, and y'all gonna understand it, and y'all gonna respect it. Put it in a conspicuous place. Put it somewhere everybody gonna see it. Somewhere in plain sight, put it right there. Also that copies should be laid up in the treasury, to the end that Simon and his sons might have them. So there's so much more to read. We also get to a point where Simon ends up dying. I hate that story of how he died. And I remember reading it because it's so much good that's finally happening that I forget this isn't a movie. This is real life. So then I'll let you guys go read about Simon's death. Kind of pissed me off because I was like, how, Sway? How? But nonetheless, this is the reason for commemorating Simon. This is why we memorialize Simon. And the memorial of Simon specifically is the commemorating of what Simon did in capturing Gaza and capturing Jerusalem, or regaining, I won't say capturing, regaining Jerusalem and cleansing it, but also to see all of the things that Simon had done. This is why he's worthy of the praise in even his own day, for all of the righteousness that he did for Israel in this time, despite his whole family dying. His dad died, all of his brothers died in war, and he still rode for the Most High. Win, lose, or draw. He still had that faith to push the people and exhort the people to strengthen their faith in the Most High. Simon is one of the coldest. If you ain't read the Maccabees, I recommend that you go and read the book of Maccabees. With that being said, that is Simon the Counselor. That is the history of the memorial of Simon. If you want to, double back and read all of this. This is some crazy history, and once you read it, you'll see why the Maccabees, as well as Esdras and a few others, was taken out by the Protestants. Why it was taken out of the original King James Version Bible. There's a lot of missing history that is the reason for a lot of the confusion of modern day Christians. So, y'all already know what it is. This is my spiel. Every first Monday, we got Bible Q&A. Y'all be sure to tune in for those. Every Monday after that, we have Los Discípulos de la Palabra, which is our Spanish class. Tuesday, Bible Basics. Wednesday, World History According to the Bible. Second and fourth Thursday is Stick to the Script. Every Friday, it's the Blue Strip with the Apostle Yashamai. Room 144 with either Bishop Anaya, Bishop Izar, or the head apostle Ashtapash. That's room 144 at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. And then my class closes it out, Sound Doctrine, with yours truly. Every Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, War for the Kingdom, Bishop Yazikwel. And we close out, you already know, Bishop Tsayuwan, Feed the Sheep. Y'all be sure to continue to tune in. If you haven't subscribed to the platform yet, be sure to subscribe. If you ain't shared the content yet, be sure to share this because, again, I say this every week. We do this for y'all. We're trying to get y'all this daily bread. We're trying to feed y'all souls. We're trying to strengthen your foundation. We're trying to strengthen your faith. We're trying to strengthen your spirit. But you're not the only person that needs this daily bread. So be sure to push out this daily bread in hopes that you can be a light to someone else, that they can get this understanding as well. With that being said, appreciate y'all, Israel. Love y'all, Israel. Y'all be sure to tune in tomorrow. And I think that's all we got going on, right? Yeah. Y'all be sure to tune in tomorrow to Feed the Sheep as well as War for the Kingdom. Love y'all. It's been another segment of Sound Doctrine with myself, Brother Darash. Shalom, Israel.
If it wasn't for the Most High who was on my side, man, ain't no telling where I'd be. Mr. Wilson would've known. Can't nobody tell me nothing different. The Father's been good to me. So good to me. Yeah. Wave your hands if you feel me. I'm a witness. Yahweh's been good to me. So good to me. Every morning that I rise, I thank Yahweh that I'm living. Keep my enemies at bay and never leave without my fringes. 1611 with me cause I'm on a mission. Talking sheep, I pay the cost, me and my lines really live it. I don't need no glory, you don't have to know my story.